Hello, I'm Caroline Fairchild, and welcome to LinkedIn News Live, where the business conversation begins with you. While many businesses saw a slowdown during the pandemic, Peloton experienced a boom. The home fitness company saw a surge in sales by as much as 172% during the height of the virus, and now boasts more than 5.9 million members. But how do you lead a company through such a dramatic period of growth? Joining me now to discuss is John Foley. He's the founder of Peloton, has been the CEO since its inception 9.5 years ago. Prior to that, he was president of e-commerce at Barnes & Noble. He got his BA from the Georgia Institute of Technology and his MBA from Harvard. John, welcome to LinkedIn News Live.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here, Caroline.
Yeah, it's so exciting to speak with you. I think we've all been watching through this virus how Peloton has just seen so much massive growth. Take us back to the beginning of this pandemic. What was the first sign to you that this was going to mean big things for Peloton's business?
Yeah, there were a couple things. Obviously, for us, it wasn't just the shelter in place and everyone being at home. It was also a lot of state mandates that gyms were closing. So it wasn't just, hey, people were freaked out and wanting to stay in place and scared to get the virus. There was also some structural tailwind where you just couldn't go to a gym because they were closed. So we knew that there was going to be wind in our sail. We knew there was a moment in time where people needed our products, not just wanted our products. So it was kind of a big moment from not just a opportunity as a business person, but it was a responsibility to our communities to bring health and wellness, not just from the physical perspective, but from the mental escape and the connection and all the stuff that people were missing, especially in those scary first couple months of the pandemic where people were freaked out. And so to the extent that our community was there with you, sharing experiences and giving you a moment of physical and mental escape was an important part, and we were proud to do it.
People were freaked out at the beginning of this pandemic. I would say I think people are still freaked out about the virus. But what I will say is that you brought that community in a way that was different than a lot of your peers. A lot of the instructors were actually, for a long period of time, I remember, teaching out of their own homes. From a logistical standpoint, how did you pull that off, and how did you decide that that was something that needed to happen?
Well, yeah, we talked about, you could you could use your Peloton bike with a class that was taught 3 years ago. Those classes are still on demand. You can take a class. It's a great class, great music, great instruction. But there was something about the authenticity and the connection of having a live, relevant class with someone actually there talking to you about their own fears and what's going on in their life. And you're seeing, the community there with you in real time and support. So you're absolutely right, Caroline. We scrambled to get, because we had to close our studios just like other people close their studios. So we said, wait, how do we get our content to our members and to our community? And what we did was we created these little hardware and software products that we would ship to our instructors, and they would set them up in their living room or their bedroom in their small apartment, and they would have a bike and they'd set up the cameras, and they figured out how to effectively MacGyver their own streaming studio from their house so that we could bring that class to you live from all these instructors, so that there was a connection and a community and a real moment where the instructor is coaching you live and sharing, the experience with you.
Well, as an aside, John, because I do see many Peloton fans joining us in the stream right now, my favorite part of that whole in-home workout situation was what was going on with Leanne and Ben, because they were dating at the time, but they had to change out their set to make it look like they weren't in the same space, but everyone knew that. Now I feel comfortable saying this on the air because they're very publicly engaged at this point, but that was really a treat just to see them having to figure out how to make it look like they were in different spaces.
That's so funny you caught that.
Speaking of some members who are joining us in this stream, we have Anna from Romania, Kirsten from Hawaii, Ahmet from Turkey, and Olivia from California. And Jason says he's been a member since the Kickstarter came out. When was that?
I guess it was the Kickstarter campaign came out in call it May or June of 2013. He probably didn't get his bike for another 6 months till the January or February of 2014.
Well, Jason, thanks for joining us and for being a Peloton fan for so long. If you have questions for John Foley about how he scaled this business during a global pandemic or any leadership advice, let us know in the stream and we'll get those questions answered. John, what I find so interesting about your story is that Peloton's not necessarily a new company. It's been around for almost a decade, and you spent a lot of those years trying to convince people about the opportunity here with home fitness. What kept you pushing, particularly since you were doing this during a period where everyone was talking about, oh, it's all about the berries, the soul cycle, the in-person, that's what people want and that's what they need?
Yeah, it's funny. In those early days, Caroline, there was a lot of negativity. There was a lot of disbelief. People didn't know why they needed this stationary bike when stationary bikes for decades had failed them. So we had to, it was a big education. And what to your question, what kept us going? And when we knew we had something was we would just get, whether it was my wife or any of our friends or any of the early uh, um, users or members or customers, we would get them on the bike and they would put the headphones on and they would take a class and they'd lose themselves. And 45 minutes later, they'd get off and say, oh my gosh, I was transported. I was transformed. This thing is incredible. Yes, of course I want this. How can I get one tomorrow? And so it was the dog food in tech terms, the dog food tasted incredibly well. And we were able to make the dog food. It was just, that's one of the reasons why we opened stores was because we just needed people to taste the dog food, get on the bike, experience it. And the light bulb went off and said, oh my gosh, where has this been all my life? I've always wanted to work out at home, but the experiences weren't fun. They weren't awesome. They weren't entertaining. It wasn't live or on demand. And the music and the programming wasn't there because the software and content weren't part of the world. It was a hardware world when what you wanted was the content. And we saw that through the boutique environment here in New York City, whether it was through boot camps or yoga or indoor cycling. We knew that the programming and the energy of other people and the instruction and the music and all that stuff was what you really wanted. You didn't care about the hardware. The hardware went away. And so it was those early members getting on the bike. The first person was my wife, where, it was a few of us in this kind of, effective garage, the New York City equivalent of a garage, and we would write some code or prototype and hack together MacGyver a kind of a cobbled together bike, and we'd get her on it and we'd say, what do you think? And she loved it, so we knew we had something.
Well, you mentioned the hardware, you mentioned the software, and I think we might have just seen some photos of Peloton apparel, which is a new venture that you recently announced for the company. So I'm going to ask you the question that I'm sure you hate getting as a CEO, but like, what is Peloton? Do you consider it a hardware company? Is it a software company? Is it a media company? How do you envision where this company is going to go in the future?
Yeah, it's funny, Caroline. When we were going public a couple of years ago in our S1, we tried to capture what are we, and I think it was 12 things that we listed. To your point, were a lot. As you're asking it, I've never said this, but I would say we are a company that's committed to our members and our members' fitness journey, and that obviously started with the bike. Now it goes into the treadmill where you can get full body boot camp workouts, circuit workouts from home, and we have an opportunity to educate people. Just like 10 years ago, people didn't know what a Peloton bike was and why they needed it. I don't think people understand what a Peloton tread is yet and why it's so much different than a tread of yesteryear and how awesome it is. So what we are as a company is we're a group of people who are passionate about fitness. We love technology. We love media. We are now a global company. We are kind, compassionate, loving, good human beings, and we take a great deal of responsibility in our members' fitness journeys. And so we are giving them yoga, we're giving them outdoor running, we're meeting them where they are and trying to make sure that they feel our commitment to them living healthier and happier lives.
Let's dig into that community a little bit, John, because of course, at the very center, the crux of that community are the instructors who are just accruing this massive following both on and off the bike, whether it's Cody Rigsby on Dancing with the Stars or seeing Ali Love's wedding in Vogue or Robin's pregnancy being announced in People magazine. I mean, these people are now celebrities in their own right. How do you hire? How do you find these people? I feel like I've heard so many of their origin stories about how they came to Peloton, but in terms of how you think about bringing people to the team, what do you look for?
Yeah, in the early days, we looked for people that were willing to take the risk with us, that just shared our vision. And to your point, Robin, Ali, and Cody were three of the OGs, as we call them, all the original people at Peloton. And they believed. And one beautiful thing about entrepreneurship is it's self-selecting. People who are dynamic and want to bet on themselves and believe in themselves and share a vision of where fitness is going, they jump on board. So that was a little bit, we knew they were great. Jen Sherman, Hannah Corbin. We knew that these early people were great, and they also were risk takers, and so it was a shared DNA. At this point, it's a lot harder to find the right people because we have thousands of people who want these jobs. So now I'm fortunate enough to work with this woman, Jen Cotter, who's our colleague, who's our chief content officer, and she has a whole team of people who understand how to vet incredible on-air talent, and certainly not something that I have that skill set. As we've grown, we've been able to hire incredible leaders across the board, and Jen Cotter is one of the top. She's an incredibly compassionate, hardworking, super smart media visionary, along with a fitness visionary, and her partner Kevin Chorlins and her whole team doing a fantastic job of finding those people. Because you're right, it's a huge part of what we do.
I'm thinking most specifically right now, John, about how Robin came to Peloton. I think I've heard her say like 40 or 50 times on the bike that she sent you a cold email. What quality did that tell you was something that you wanted to bring onto the team? And as you just said, is now thousands of people are probably sending you emails, thousands of people are wanting these jobs. How are you still identifying that talent that might be under the surface a little bit?
Yeah, a lot of it is, and I think Jen Sherman has the same thing, and obviously Robin and all these, all of our on-air talent has this weird combination, which is not just on air; it's behind the camera and throughout our organization, is a real combination of hunger and humility and confidence. Robin is a very confident woman. Jen Sherman is a very confident woman, but they have a humility and a hunger that is authentic, and it comes across on air, and you see it, and you fall in love with them, and you listen to them, and what they say. The messages of believe in yourself and you can do it is authentic because they believe it themselves, and it's something I often get in a class, whether it's on the bike or the tread or yoga or wherever on the Peloton platform, and I lose myself, and I know these people, but I lose myself in their encouragement, and I need it. I'm a rider and a member, just like you are, Caroline, and it's real. It's something special. I will say this though, it is largely not coached. A lot of the talent is just by virtue of the pure force of these personalities. They are incredible people across the board, and you just get to. I mean, I pinch myself when I get to spend time with them in the office because they are always inspiring.
Well, speaking of the office, I read that you are a big office guy. Talk to us a little bit about how you guys are thinking about return to work and what value you see in the office culture, as a lot of companies are switching to hybrid. A lot of companies are saying, hey, actually, we don't require you to come back at all.
Yeah, I am a big office guy, and I'm really frustrated right now because we built this super awesome. I think it's the best place to work. I'm calling it the best place to work in New York City. We put 120, 130 million dollars into building this fantastic 400,000 or 500,000 square feet, where thousands of the most inspired and energetic and ambitious professionals are going to come together, and we're going to build the next chapters of Peloton. Obviously, with COVID, we're not able to do that. For some of your listeners and some of the people in the audience, they might not know that right now New York City has a mask mandate inside. So even if we were to say, let's get back into the office, we'd all have to have masks on, which is just tough and hard to rush back to the office so that you sit around and have masks on, because we all know how frustrating that is. So we're in limbo like the rest of the world. We are going to be what we're calling office first culture, because we do care about teaminess and slapping high fives and being together and the energy of other people. I'm super social, and I think being in person, there's nothing that can replace that. But we are going to have to be more flexible, and there will be virtual days and virtual meetings, and we're figuring it out. And I'm confident that our team will strike the right balance.
Well, speaking about how the pandemic has impacted Peloton, I have a question here in the stream from Morty. He's asking, considering the challenges from the pandemic and the demand, how did you handle the supply chain issues and scaling up more content and adding new instructors? To bring more color to Morty's question, like, I'm sure you saw the tweets of people being like, my Peloton, I ordered one, it's not coming. How did you deal with customer demand and also expectation during this time?
Yeah, so luckily we are an ambitious company, and we see that this is the future of fitness, and so we are planning to grow. We've doubled the size of the company every year since inception. This year, coming out of a COVID comp, is going to be much harder. So we guided to 56% sub growth this year. So this will be our first year without truly 100% growth. But I bring it up in the context of we were planning to have incredible growth. So we were largely ready with the supply chain. That said, no one could be ready for COVID. I mean, it was the craziest, act of God, whatever you call it, force majeure in legal terms, of our lifetimes. And so there was even more supply, there was even more demand than we could have anticipated, clearly. And how we kept on top of it, or how we tried to keep on top of it, clearly our order to delivery, inched up because everybody wanted a Peloton bike or a tread last year. But the answer is that our supply chain team is incredible. Our contract manufacturers are incredible. Our in-house folks, led by John Adey and Tom Cortese, are incredible, and they pulled a rabbit out of their hat, and have done and continue. You're following, and I'm sure your readers or listeners are following, the global chip shortage, and we have hundreds of chips per bike and tread. The steel shortage, the commodity shortage, it's all impacting it. Since the degree of difficulty has gotten harder, luckily our professionals are out in front of it, and I've been impressed. We've largely landed the planes on getting bikes and treads to our members.
That demand obviously is a blessing for every businessman, but it's also a curse in some ways. And some of that curse, I feel like, because of Peloton's growth during this pandemic, you have people on Wall Street saying, oh, Peloton's growth is slowing. It's not going to be able to keep up this type of momentum. What is your response to that in terms of what people are saying right now about, say, hey, it's not height of pandemic Peloton boom right now, but you still have a business that you think is worth investing in?
Yeah, and we again, we've always been a growth company. We have growth in our DNA. We strongly believe that globally fitness is moving into the home. And one fun metaphor, Caroline, you think about where Netflix did well in the pandemic. I don't think next month people are canceling their Netflix membership and rushing back to the movie theater. People now understand that watching movies at your location with incredible selection at incredible value is a better program than spending money and going out. And maybe a couple times a year you'll go to a movie theater. But I think the same metaphor exists at home fitness. I think people now understand that you can get these incredible, engaging, entertaining, fun, effective workouts at home at a better value, for a couple dollars versus what was in the boutique world, $30 per class. Now it's a couple dollars per class on Peloton. And now that we have the treadmill and you can take circuit workouts and full body workouts at home without leaving and not going to the gym and leaving your family in the morning, I think the word is out. And so we think we have high hopes, and we're going to continue growing and delivering for our investors, which I think was your question.
Yeah, John, it's interesting that you bring up Netflix, because I wanted to ask you about this ad from Netflix that's going around. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's a billboard and it says, "Don't give up on your dreams. We started with DVDs." What's the Peloton version of DVDs in that metaphor, if you're thinking about what you started with and how much you've grown?
Oh gosh, there is a metaphor we say of you got to rob a few gas stations on the way to the perfect crime, and I do think the perfect crime is still ahead of us. Back to where we see the business going and delivering for our members. If you have a Peloton bike and a Peloton treadmill, and you do Peloton yoga, and you do Peloton strength, and you buy one of our other products that we're talking about, and you might have heard about, and you're able to cancel your gym, and you and your live-in partner and maybe your 15-year-old son or daughter are on the platform, the value that you get for that $39, by the way, you only pay $139 for your entire household for all those products, and you get all this content. You might buy some of our apparel, and you might fall in love with how fantastic the quality on our apparel is. And you might become a Peloton household, and you might feel so good that it becomes your favorite brand, and it helps you and your whole family live an inspired, better life, happier life. You're a better version of yourself. You feel good about yourself every day. That's where we're taking the business, and we're not quite there yet. Obviously, you see us going there, and we see it as our opportunity, and we plan to take advantage of it.
I think that's a great vision. I mean, I see a bunch of people in the stream asking if the best is still ahead, anything we can expect. I was going to ask you, I know that dance cardio dropped again today. I was going to ask if you wanted to do a dance cardio with me here during the interview, but I thought that would be very embarrassing for me and partly embarrassing for yourself, so not. But what is ahead in terms of what we can expect from Peloton?
More than a little embarrassing for me. I realize I just turned 50, and my 10-year-old daughter and my 13-year-old son, take the piss out of me every day. I'm like, okay, I've turned into that dad. Somewhere along the line, I'm now
John, I'm sure you do a better job than me. My father calls me Grace, and not in the good way, just to let you know.
No, but what was your question? I lost track.
What's ahead? Anything new that we can expect from Peloton? Any sneak peeks giving us into what we can expect moving forward?
Yeah, I can't announce anything right now, Caroline, but I will tell you that when we started Peloton, the bike, and we brought the bike to market in effectively our garage again with very limited capital and a very light team, and largely no idea what we were doing. What I see now as I get to go into our R&D lab and see the future products that are being worked on, it's incredible to me the quality of industrial design and mechanical engineering and electrical engineering and software engineers and content and CMF, the color material fabric, across the board. Our products that we are going to bring to market in the coming quarters and coming years are orders of magnitude better than the products we brought to market years and years ago. So I'm so excited. I'm excited for our members. I'm excited for our investors, and our team is having a lot of fun along the way.
Well, putting the product aside, putting the investors inside, let's talk about you a little bit. Obviously, the pandemic has completely shifted how people are thinking about the role of the CEO, particularly when it comes to speaking out on social causes. We saw at one point during the pandemic that Peloton committed $100 million to fighting racial injustice. How did you manage that shift from your seat as the CEO of this company for almost a decade?
Well, I happen to care a lot about all of this stuff that is now an expectation of CEOs. I've been a student of the Business Roundtable, where I think it was probably 10 years ago, Jamie Dimon in the Business Roundtable said that leadership teams are no longer just responsible for their shareholders, but for their members and their employees and their communities. And there's an expectation that they care about all of these stakeholders, not just their shareholders. And I really took note of that, and I was excited because I do think we have an opportunity and a responsibility as leadership teams, and I'm happy and proud to have a leadership team and peers and partners at Peloton who are also equally as committed and caring about all of these different things. So we're going to hopefully lead not just Peloton and with our pledge and with all the other stuff that we're going to do, but hopefully be a high watermark and a beacon of how a modern company needs to run, so that other companies can take note and say, look at what they're doing, and we can inspire a whole new generation of leadership teams, not defaulting on their responsibilities and really delivering in some ways where governments aren't. And really taking care of people internal to Peloton and external to Peloton, and going the extra distance to really care, again, not just about our shareholders, but about everyone along the way, not just every person, but also our environments and all these, ESG and DE&I and all this. We care deeply about it. Our board also cares about it. So it was awesome when we had the idea of this $100 million pledge. It took about 12 hours for me to get a hold of each one of our board members, and there was zero resistance. It's a real philosophical, cultural thing throughout the organization of Peloton, and I'm proud to be a part of it. And you're going to see more because we do care.
A lot of people are looking and watching what you're doing, John, and some of them are in the stream right now. We have a couple questions that I want to get to from members. One from Shri and one from Kirsten. Shri asks, for someone who's starting out their business, would you say that building your community is important when it comes to scaling? So how do you think about community building as you're actually trying to scale, and how is that important? And then Kirsten's asking, what would you tell young entrepreneurs today who are trying to start their own company? What has been your greatest motivation? So importance of community, and how have you stayed motivated?
Yeah, community is a new term to us, to be honest. When we were starting Peloton, I knew what social software was. I knew that when you went to the boutique, you loved the instructor and the music and the programming, the content and all that stuff, but you also loved the social energy of other people and the communication and the conversation and the connection and the support and all that stuff. There were two discrete things that we tried to merge on Peloton, but we never called it community. We called it social software and social features. And that was, going back to, our conversation, Caroline, how much I love LinkedIn. You guys bring the community. I mean, it's core to what you are. It's network software, social software, gamified software. And I knew the software world, so we called it that. And we wanted to have these social hooks where you felt the presence of other people. The community itself was largely built by just, if you build it, they will come. We put these features in, and the community created itself in a way that we largely watched. It was beautiful and brilliant, and not brilliant on our part, but brilliant that it happened. It's one of the most important parts of our business, but it wasn't it wasn't really a strategic vision that we had. It kind of surprised us in a beautiful way, and we're proud of it, obviously, at this point. The second question about what would I tell a young entrepreneur? I will tell you, I wasn't a young entrepreneur. I told you I was 50. You can back into. I started the business when I was 40. I'm 50. It's been 10 years, and I was hungry. I had a young family in New York City, and I hadn't made any money, and I was masquerading as someone who could afford a private school, and I barely could. And so, and my co-founder is the same thing. We were just literally experienced enough in software and leadership, but literally had something to prove and hungry. And I think that's as strong of a motivation as you're going to find. So my encouragement, and I told you I have a 13-year-old son, as he's thinking about going off into the world. I think getting great experience with great companies, whether it's LinkedIn or Peloton or Netflix or any of these great companies, and learning the ropes, surrounding yourself with great people, learning about culture, learning about leadership, learning about technology, and being patient. I'm not going to say to my 22-year-old son, go be an entrepreneur, because he's not ready. He needs to go cut his teeth and learn a trade and be good at something and work at a great company, a couple great companies. And maybe by the time he's 35, he's going to know enough and be confident enough and have enough experience to venture off. But that's kind of my gut. Obviously, it's how my journey went. So it's a little bit just my story.
Well, going back to the conversation that we had before the show, John, if that 13-year-old doesn't have Duke on his list of colleges, send him my way and we will change that. John, thank you so much for joining us. I'm seeing so many people in the stream. Thankful for your time. Where are you? Are you in your home office right now? Are you in the office, in the actual Peloton office?
No, I'm in the West Village. I'm here at home.
All right. Well, when you see my key three, Robin, Allie, and Alex, tell them I say hello. We'd love to have them on the show as well. And again, thanks for your time.
I will, for sure. Thank you so much, Caroline. Good to see you.
That was John Foley. He's the founder and CEO of Peloton, walking us through how he scaled up the business during the pandemic. I want to thank him for joining us on the show. Seeing a great conversation here in the stream. So if you want to continue the conversation, be sure to do so by checking out the news module to the right of your LinkedIn feed. Or if you're in mobile, you can click into that search box. Tomorrow, I'll be back with you at 10 a.m. Eastern to break down the jobs numbers from the LinkedIn news page. We'll talk about the BLS report and also share some of our own LinkedIn jobs data. I'm Caroline Fairchild. Thank you so much for joining us.